Welcome back to the channel, guys. My name's Andy R and this is the Brotherhood of Men. So what am I talking about today? Well, today, if you've looked at the thumbnail, which I'm sure you have, and clicked on, you already know, but let me tell you anyway. Who is the most trusting? Men or women? Men or women? Who's the most trusting in a relationship? Well, this one goes hands down to men. We are the most trusting in a relationship. Now, if you women out there are watching this, you're going to be shouting at the screen now, how can you say that men do this, men do that, blah, blah, blah. No. Let me explain. Men are the most trusting because we have to be. Until fairly recently, there wasn't easily available DNA testing for children that you had together. Let me say that again. Until quite recently, there wasn't easily accessible DNA testing for you to prove that any child that you thought was yours is yours. We had to trust it was ours. We are the most trusting. This is why in our society, in days gone by, and I'm not talking thousands of years ago or hundreds of years ago, I'm talking probably the 1950s onwards, or before that, sorry, we had to trust that our partner was loyal and wasn't sleeping around on us, and therefore any children we had, whether we were married or not, and usually it was within marriage, we had to instantly assume that that child was ours. We had to trust implicitly. This is why we wanted virgins when we took them to the marriage bed, because we knew then that we were the only one who went there. Guys, this is super important for you to take on. You can only go by your own personal experience. And what I mean by that is, if you get together with a woman, if that's your choice, if you've not gone completely MGTOW and have nothing to do with women, but as I've said about MGTOW, it's a choice. There are those who say, like me, I'm not telling you to stop having relationships with women, I'm just go in with your eyes open and know what to expect. And there are those at the other end of the spectrum who are saying have nothing to do with women at all. But as I've explained before, here in England, you don't have to get married. There is no such thing as common law to nail you down and your assets, your income and everything else to a woman if you just live together or if you just have a relationship. But right now I'm talking about children. When I say the most trusting, it's because we had to. All the way up until quite recently, we had to implicitly trust the woman that we were with, that if we had children together, it was ours. The trouble is, since DNA testing, we've found those truths to not be true. Now, we know about genetics far more than we used to. And I'm going to tell you a true story that happened to a guy I know who's a really good guy. Him and his girlfriend, they were, well, his fiancée at the time, they hadn't got married, but she fell pregnant and it delayed the marriage until after the birth because of monetary issues more than anything. Now, he's a great guy. He's a big guy as well. A big bear of a man, but one of the most nicest guys you'll ever meet. He's the kind of person you'd want in your corner if the crap hit the fan. He is that kind of guy. You know, he's not the kind who turns on his friends. But at the same time, if you get him angry, you don't want to be standing in his way when the crap hits the fan. But a really nice guy. Now, I didn't know his fiancée as well as I knew him, but his best friend came to me and he was quite upset. And I said to him, "What's the matter?" Now, this isn't going where you think it's going. It wasn't his best friend coming to me to tell me he'd slept with the other guy's fiance. No. He came to me because he said, "I don't think things are right between Jim," that was his name, "and his fiancée Sarah." And I said, "Why not?" And he said, "I went round to see the baby today." Now, this was a few months after the birth. And I went, "Oh, right, how's they getting on?" And he went, "Yeah, Andy, if I tell you something, will you keep it to yourself?" And I said, "Well, it depends what you tell me, but I can't make promises in the blind." And he went, "Okay, fair enough. Yeah, their daughter, they'd had a daughter, she's got brown eyes." And I went, "Oh my God, you kidding me?" And he went, "No." And I don't know what to do. I went, "Oh, jeez." Now, you might think to yourself, why the hangdog look and why the "oh my God" and all the rest of it. What you've got to understand is that Jim has bright blue eyes. His fiancée has blue eyes. Genetics tell us that usually, not always, but usually, and I mean a very high percentage, blue-eyed couples have blue-eyed babies. And the reason for that is that brown eyes are the dominant DNA strain. So if just one of you has got brown eyes, your child is 99% likely to have brown eyes. And this is why in the past, and this again goes down to preference, that blue-eyed men tend to be attracted more to blue-eyed women because they can be more sure of their children if they're born with blue eyes. This is proven. You can see this literature anyway. You don't believe me? Look it up. This goes back generationally, and it goes back long before DNA. Thousands of years this goes back. The blue-eyed men tended to be attracted more to blue-eyed women for the simple reason that their trust could be proven if they had children and they had blue eyes. Jim and Sarah had a brown-eyed child, and Jim hadn't seen the significance. Maybe he was so overwhelmed and he hadn't came in. Now, why do I say this is because we're taught in our schools when you're young, I don't know if they still teach it, but we were taught about genetics and, you know, the eye colour and that. And I remember a little girl in the class that I was in that said, "Oh, well, if a girl has brown eyes and a boy has blue eyes," and the teacher said exactly what I've just said to you, and you can look it up yourself, that a high percentage, unless their immediate parent there's one brown eye. Like I say, the brown eyes is the dominant gene. So not having a blue-eyed child isn't really a problem. But the thing is that both Jim's parents are blue-eyed and both Sarah's parents are blue-eyed. Don't know about the grandparents. I mean, the regressive gene only goes back so far. But for them to have a brown-eyed child, it asks questions. So Dave, who is Jim's best friend, who'd come to see me, said, "What do I do?" And I said, "Yeah, he's your best friend. What would you want to happen if you were in this situation?" And he said, I'd want to know." I said, "There's your answer then." And he says, "Yeah, but he's not. He might want to shoot the messenger on this one." And I said, "Yes, he might do, but he's your best friend, so you need to do what you think's right." So he did. He went and he spoke to Jim, and he said to Jim, he said, "I'm really sorry, mate, but I've got to say this. Do you think your daughter is your daughter?" And he said, "What the hell are you talking about? Of course she's my daughter." I said, "She's got brown eyes." And he went, Yeah. He said, you've got blue eyes. Sarah's got blue eyes. Both your parents have got blue eyes. Both of her parents have got blue eyes. Why has your daughter got brown eyes? And I have to be honest, I've never seen a guy so big and so strong crumble into floods of tears. He was heartbroken. Then he started saying silly stuff. We guys, when we get emotional, when we get angry, when we feel humiliated, we start to lash out. And he did the same thing. Jim was like, I'm going to kill her, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And both Dave and I had to more or less pin him down and say, that's going to get you nowhere. You need to know the truth. So you need to get a DNA test. I said, but first, I'd go and talk to her. I mean, how's she been with you? He says, I wondered why she was so off. All the way through the pregnancy, she was acting weird and, you know, down and depressed. And I kept saying, what's wrong? Oh, it's just the baby. It's just this, just that, just the other. He says, but since then, you know, weeks after, he says, we haven't, now I wonder why we haven't continued any loving in the bedroom since the baby came. He says, you know, even after the doctors cleared her and that, nothing's happened. She's depressed, and I'm thinking, oh, it's the baby blues, you know, she's got postpartum or something. He says, and now I think I know why. And I said, well, that's how you approach it then. You just go up to her and say, when were you going to tell me that the baby wasn't mine? And see what she says, see what she does. If she completely denies it, you know you need to get a DNA test and you know what route you've got to go down. I said, but if she admits it, at least you know. I said, but either way, the kid's not yours, mate. And you need to make decisions with that firmly in your mind. So apparently he did. I wasn't there, but he told me a few days later. He said, I more or less said exactly what you said. I said, when were you going to tell me that the baby wasn't mine? And he said, and she just broke into tears, and she said she was ever so sorry. She was drunk one night. And I've said before, when did drunk become an excuse and not a condition? It's no excuse. She knew she was in a relationship. She knew she was getting married to this guy. She knew she was out drinking. Nobody forced those drinks down her. Nobody. She knew what she'd done. But then she falls pregnant. Then she's thinking, is it Jim's or is it this other guy's? At no time in any of that pregnancy, and even up to that point when he confronted her, did she say, Jim, I've got something to say to you. You might not like to hear this, but I'm pregnant and it might not be yours. I was drunk one night and I slept with another guy. She never came to him and said afterwards, I was drunk the other night out with my friends and I ended up sleeping with another guy. She didn't give him information that he could make an informed decision. So he went all the way through it, supporting her mood swings and her jumbled up mind, because she's carrying this guilt of what she's done to a great guy, and she knows she's done it, not even knowing if the baby she's carrying is his, who she planned to marry. And all the time she's making him suffer because she's the one with all that guilt and mood. And what did Jim do all the way through that? He trusted her. He was trusting. Even after the baby was born and the evidence was in front of him, he didn't put two and two together because he trusted her. So when I say guys are the most trusting, it's for this specific reason, because she did the worst thing a woman can ever do to a man. She tried to palm off another man's baby as his. That's disgusting. That is the worst thing you can do to any man. It's lying, it's cheating, and it's fraud. So what did Jim do after that? Well, obviously he left her. Well, actually, no, that's not true. He kicked her out. You see, the house was his. He bought it before he met her. He'd had it for years. He felt terrible. The man was broken up because he loved this girl and he loved the baby when it had come. So now he had to turn all of that off. It's not a light switch. We can't just do it like that. You women seem to think that we guys are unemotional. You are so wrong. But the thing is that when we're rattled so much that we have to really, from a previous video, man up, we will make the hard choices and we will stick with them. Not only that, but Sarah, his fiancée, was a solicitor. No, sorry, is a solicitor. She still is. For those who aren't from the UK, a solicitor is a lawyer. He threatened her in such a way that she had to do what he said. So when he said, "Get out of my house," she got out of his house. He didn't threaten her physically. He threatened her job because he said, "You have committed fraud. On that birth certificate is my name, and you didn't know that my name belonged on there because you knew at the time that you got pregnant that you'd slept with not just me but somebody else. I don't know how many, I don't know how long it's been going on. I can't trust anything that's coming out of your mouth, but I can point to a legal document that you put your name to claiming I was the father." That's fraud. Claiming somebody else is the father, claiming anybody's the farmer, is not fraud. But putting it down on a legal document is. So he said, "You will get my name taken off of that birth certificate. You will pay for that. And if you don't, I will have you in court for fraud, which will lose you your bar license and therefore end your career." And that's what happened. And Jim has had nothing to do with Sarah or the baby ever since. Like I say, this happened to a friend of mine, but years and years ago. Now, back to Dave. Dave, like I say, is Jim's best friend. And Dave is probably the best friend we all need. You see, Dave came to me to tell me his fears because he was frightened of approaching Jim because Jim is a big guy and you don't want to see what he looks like when he gets really riled up. But the thing was, he was still good enough a friend, and I mean a solid top brother, that he still went and told his friend his fears. And his friend knew what he'd done for him. They're still friends to this day. They're still best friends. They have been since they were about 5 years old. I think they met in infant school. And he still says to anybody who asks, "Don't you ever talk about Dave bad in front of me." This is Jim speaking. Because Dave saved my life. And what he means by that, not his physical, he was going to die. He meant saved him a life of misery. Do you think his pain would have got easier or worse the older that child got? The more he supported that child and loved it. She became a daddy's girl. She, "Oh, my dad's home," this, the first words, the first steps, all of those important moments. Luckily, it was only a few months after the baby was born that he was able to confront Sarah, get to the truth and get things changed and change his life around. So you tell me, would his pain and his suffering been less or more the older that child got? And seeing as she was already rejecting Jim through her own guilt, do you think their relationship would have got better or worse as the years went on? Do you think she didn't have respect enough for him to stay faithful and not have another man's child? Do you think she would have stayed faithful in that relationship or treated him like a mug? And the disrespect she showed him. Do you think their sex life would have been improved with her staying there? Or do you think it would have got less that he became so frustrated that maybe he cheated? So when I ask you, who is the most trusting, men or women, I can put my hand on my heart and say it's men, because we have to be. Anyway, that was today's subject. I hope you got something from it. Let me know in the comments what you think, and I will talk to you soon. My name's Andy R. This is the Brotherhood of Men, and you brothers out there need to watch your back. Anyway, I'll talk to you soon because I need a cup of tea. I think I've earned one. Bye now.